Hello and welcome to SweetSpotDFS. This is a review for the 2021 Sony Open. In the past, how I've done these review videos, basically looking at the preview video I've done earlier in the week, the course history video or the course fit video, and then doing like a review of the strategy video. But this week, or I think going forward, what I want to do is just do a really quick recap. Instead of this video being 30 some minutes long, I just want to say what I did right, what I did wrong, and then recap it just to show a little proof behind it. So what you can do if you want to find what I'm covering, check it out in the timestamps below, or I have chapter mode enabled. The little progress bar is split up into segments. You can see which part of the video is what. So go ahead and check it out there. So let's just go right away and get into it. About the spreadsheet up, these are the results. The first thing we got right, the score, the winning score. We kind of predicted that it was going to be somewhere between 21 and 24 under. That was in the preview video. You can go check it out. It ended up happening. 21 under was your winning score. Kevin Na did it with a birdie on hole 18. So, I mean, it was close to failing, but we got that part right. And that obviously is just looking at past results and determining, you know, with weather, do we see kind of the same thing happening this year's tournament? And we did. So we got that one right. You guys can pause the video, look at the people at the top of the leaderboard. I'm not going to go over it. Well, we'll go over it kind of when we do the breakdown of like the DK page, that kind of stuff, because everyone here at the top 10, it's no surprise that they're in the top 10 based off their Bermuda stats. It's a pretty telling statistic once we get there. So second thing that I usually like to do is review or compare, I should say, the optimal lineup versus the whatever GPP I'm in, the highest entry fee that I'm in. That's the one that I'm kind of comparing the optimal lineup to. This week I did the $5 drive the green. So we're looking at that winning lineup versus the optimal. What we see is the winning lineup had 705 points, and it consisted of Kevin Na, Chris Kirk, Webb Simpson, Colin Morikawa, Peter Malnati, and Michael Thompson. So we had two 6K golfers to go along with two golfers 10K and above, and then rounded out with two 7K golfers. He obviously had the winner with Kevin Na. Very good pick. I was not on Kevin Na this week, so very good on this guy. Now, the optimal lineup had 761 points. So there was a 56-point difference between the two. In order to hit the optimal lineup, you would have had to have left $3,100 on the table. Now, that's unrealistic. No one is doing that. I don't want to say crashed the Fantasy Golf Pod review themselves, but I did go on there. And it's not that I'm looking to hit a lottery ticket. What I'm trying to do is determine, is the optimal lineup feasible? You know, is there enough foretelling that we can do or enough predicting that we can do to get to an optimal lineup? Now, 46.9, I think the most I left on the table this week was $1,300, and you really didn't have to. The winning lineup had $50,000 to use. First of all, let me go over what the optimal lineup is, and then we'll come back to this. But 761 points, it included Kevin Na, Joaquin Niemann, Chris Kirk, Mark Leishman, Brendan Steele, and Matt Jones, which you had one golfer that was over 10K. The rest of them were in the 7K range. Now, we're probably never doing that. That is highly unlikely, but just wanted to point it out. Now, coming back, so this isn't a lottery ticket I'm looking to make. I want to find what consists of the optimal lineup. What pieces are involved? You know, are we looking at course history? Are we looking at recent form? That kind of thing. That's why I have the bucket system in place as well. So the optimal lineup scored 761. Here's a lineup you could have done that would have kept under. And this is what I like to do too. Basically, I try to find what's feasible. You know, can we go down to Webb Simpson, who is at $11,100? You know, right now I'm sitting at 36,000. So I have to do 14,000 for the next two positions. I have to equal up to that. Well, as I'm looking at it, Brendan Steele, it's pretty close. That's $7,100. That leaves me with $6,900 left. But we can go ahead and go down and get Peter Malnati. You know, he finished 14th place. Obviously, Matt Jones was really close, but we'd be going over. You know, that'd be $100 too much. So when we calculate all of this, you know, we take Peter Malnati, Brendan Steele, and then the other guys right here. That equals 757. That's 4 points below the optimal, and you would have used $50,000. So what I had said, here's the other thing that I got correct. When we were talking about historical salaries, I said you wanted one golfer 10K and above, a second golfer at 9 or 8K and above, then you wanted one 6K golfer, and then the rest 7K. Now let me repeat that. One 10K and above, one 8K and above, one 6 in the 6K range, the rest, the other 3 in the 7K. Now, I'm kind of cheating here, but I'm not going to say I'm cheating. I was correct. One golfer 10K and above, Joaquin Niemann. One golfer 8K and above, Webb Simpson. Yeah, he's 11-1. I get it. Or if you want to flip him around, 11-1 Webb, 10-4 Joaquin Niemann. It still falls under that same thing we're talking about, though. It's 8K and above. One guy at 6K, Peter Malnati. The other 3 in the 7K range. That would have been Kevin Na, that would have been Chris Kirk, and that would have been Brendan Steele. It's just how do we get to those golfers? That's the big thing. Maybe we can try to figure that out when we look at the player pools, that kind of stuff. So here was your optimal versus GPP winning lineup, just to see if we could have gotten there somehow. There were enough points where we could have mixed and matched any of these to win that GPP. Obviously, I didn't. How I ended up doing, I put in $32, I won 9. So that was obviously a lose for this week. Last week was good. I was $30 up. So the two weeks together, basically break even. So we're looking good. Let's go ahead and let's just dive right into the spreadsheet. I want to go over buckets and basically what we determine. I'm not going to go into the bucket system, you know, spreadsheet, that part of it, but we wanted to find somewhere between 1 to 3 last year 1s, 1 to 3 last year 2s, and then sprinkle in the rest. But then we also wanted to look at golfers who had played the week before and golfers who had finished the week before top 10. So as we go through this, or as we look at here, I'll look at the course fit first. So these are golfers who played here last year. Now, your last year 2 bucket were golfers who finished inside the top 20. We have 2 of them right here, inside the top 5, mind you. We do have Peter Malnati, who finished 14th. So if you wanted 1 to 3 last year 2s, there you go. There's your ticket. Now, we're looking at last year 1s. Those are golfers who didn't play the year before. We really only have 2 that we can use. That's Kevin Na and Billy Horschel. Now, obviously, Billy Horschel wouldn't have been in that lineup we were just talking about. That would have, you know, taken down a GPP and been within that salary range we're looking for. So really, we could only go with 1, but it still fits. You know, we still wanted 1. I think I was mostly looking for 2 or above. And if you wanted, the only best other option would have been Nick Hardy, which is a good story. If you don't know who Nick Hardy, I sent a tweet basically when he was at the College of Illinois. I can't remember if he still is or not. I don't think he is. But when he was at the College of Illinois, he saw one of his partners or one of his teammates going off for a little bathroom break. And I think I even shared this during the strategy video. Accidentally dribbled on himself. So Nick Hardy went over there and basically pulled a Billy Madison, you know, and dribbled on himself. So turned around and said, "You ain't cool if you don't pee your pants." So, or you're not cool if you don't pee your pants. So that was a cool story. I mentioned it, but you know, I'm not saying that's a narrative that you should have rode on, but he scored pretty decent points. Like, he was a good play. Otherwise, Stuart Sink was down here, 7,200, definitely doable. And I think that would have been the only other golfer I would have chosen out of all the golfers who didn't play, who were decent price. I did have some Robbie Shelton, so that was a pretty good showing by him. But when we look at the bucket system, 1s and 2s still pretty much hit. When we look at the top 10, we see 2 of each. So that's going to boost their scores going forward, but we do see a lot of 5s. And I don't know why 5s were never, a high buckets. So they're 5s now. They're probably going to change. The bucket system is very fluid year in, year out, just determine on the results. And the last year 5 bucket were golfers who finished in that 20 to 40 range from the year before. Usually this is a last year bucket 4 and sometimes a last year bucket 3. So I'm guessing it's going to go to a 4, could go to a 3. Your last year bucket 3s were golfers who missed the cut. That's usually standard, par for the course. So the bucket system looks good. And when we look at golfers who played the week before, we had 1, 2, 3, 4 golfers, 4 of them who finished top 20 the week before. So we were looking for this, whether or not you're pairing them up with the 6-2. So a last year 2, last week 2 was something I was going after. And I did mention that in the strategy video. I would definitely say go look at it. There weren't many last year 2, last week 2s. So if we were to go ahead, just clear this out, look at our last year 2, last week 2s. You basically had the choice between 3 options. Webb Simpson, Ryan Palmer, and Lonto Griffin. They all made the cut. So just targeting this makes it so easy. If you'd listened to the strategy video, you would have seen this. It would have made your decisions pretty easy. You would have made, any of these golfers would have made the cut. And I only said 1. You only wanted to play 1. I'm not going to take credit, say play all 3 of them. You wanted to play 1, and it turned out to be good. Now, the other thing to go with that too, I guess we have to look at the full top 10 leaderboard. I had said you wanted to play a 2-1. A 2-1 was another bucket, and Peter Malnati's down here as well. It was another bucket you wanted to play at least 1 in. The percentages of a 2-1 finishing inside the top 10 were really good, especially when you compare it to the rest of the golfers in that bucket. Because I did a full-on analysis of that. I included the total number. I'm sorry, I didn't do that for bucket combinations. I did it for last year bucket and last week bucket. Bucket combinations will come in the future. But either way, I said we wanted to find a 2-1, and there you go. And there weren't many to choose from. I think there were like 8 to 10 of them, I think. I can't remember the full number. 10. 3 of them finished inside the top 20. 5 of them finished. So 50% made the cut. 50% missed the cut. Some of your popular plays would have been Tom Hoagie. I think he was really the only popular play I can think of. Keegan Bradley, I'm not sure if many people are talking about him. I know some were talking about Henrik, but either way, everyone's favorite 7K golfer, Cameron Davis, finished inside. Made the cut, finished 31st or better. Charles Howell never misses a cut here. That would have been a decent play, but yeah, you had Brendan Steele or Peter Malnati. And that's what I should have looked at when I thought about this. Because when we look at the player pools that I created, because that's where I want to go to next, because that's where swing stats are going to be included, the strokes gain metrics that I usually call swing stats. Those are going to be included there. And I did number them based off of that group. So if you're with me in the strategy video, you would have seen that. But player pools, basically how I had it broken down was everything positive. That was group 1. So that was player pool 1. When we go back to the DK page, this little column here, Joaquin Niemann would have fell under that. So if we go back to the player pools, there he is right there. This was 1. Positive off the tee, positive putting was 2. Positive off the tee, negative putting was 3. Negative off the tee, positive putting was 4. And negative off the tee plus positive putting, or negative putting, was number 5. And when you look up here, you see a pretty good mix of all of them. But going back to the player pools, because that's just easier to do. When we analyze this, or when I analyze this, this is what I'm looking at. How many golfers finish inside the top 10? So, everything positive, pretty small bucket. And everyone who's in here is also in this bucket here. So I kind of look at this one, really. But it's always nice to see which golfers in here are also in here, or vice versa, to try to, determine who's a better player or not. But, out of this bucket here, which would have been 2, we had 7 golfers. Of 3, we had 5, and these are in the top 10. We had 5. For 4, we actually had 6, and then 5, we had 5. This is the most even split I've ever seen. Usually it basically pyramids in a way, if you want to call it that. Like we would see probably somewhere between 7 and 10 golfers under here, and then 4 to 7 there, 3 to 6 here, and basically just 4 here, which we were close. But I also have rules at the top here. Obviously, I didn't really hit with this bucket, but I said pick 0 to 1. And that would have been your negative off the tee, negative putting. But as we go through this, basically when I'm making lineups, I'm grabbing a golfer from here and slotting them in to my DraftKings lineup. So I'll start from like Joaquin Niemann, I'll copy and paste, or go in the DraftKings app, and then boom, just put them there. And then I'm probably grabbing somebody else here. But I'm also trying to figure out which golfers do I like in each of these ranges. So I don't think I would have gotten to Chris Kirk, but Colin Morikawa was one of my favorite plays in this positive off the tee, negative putting column, as was Carlos Ortiz. Everyone else, I didn't really play that much. Sergio was an easy one to get to because of his price. I really did like Sung Jae as well. So it was like Sung Jae and Colin, Sung Jae and Colin Morikawa. Those were the 2 golfers I played the most. I did play Carlos Ortiz quite a bit in this bucket, but the rest of them I might have played 1 or 2 of. I did like Sebastian Munoz. Yeah, Colin Morikawa and Sung Jae in that bucket was my favorite. Over here in the negative off the tee positive putting, I did like Lonto Griffin a lot. He did make the cut. I did like Tom Hoagie, who missed the cut. I don't think I liked... Oh, and Doug Gim was here as well. Funny thing about Doug Gim. So as more people in the industry were talking about him, I kind of shifted from Doug Gim at 6,900 to Peter Malnati at that same price. I liked Peter Malnati. Still, you get him on a short course where putting is a little bit more important. Peter Malnati is your guy, and he can score in bunches, and that's what you want in DraftKings scoring. So it was kind of an easy pivot. I'm glad I did more of it. Yeah, Peter Malnati, I thought was a good play. Matt Jones was someone I did not see coming, nor did I see Nick Taylor, doing that well either. Patton Kizzire was kind of a horse for the course type of golfer, which I kind of ignored, which maybe I shouldn't have. But for the most part, not terrible. I said pick 0 to 2. We had 1 finish inside the top 10, 2 golfers who finished just outside. But Matt Jones was in the optimal lineup. He was in the optimal lineup. I don't think he was in I can't remember. Was he in the $5? No, he wasn't. So yeah, he was in the optimal, but not in the winning GPP lineup. And also, as you probably read there, not in the realistic lineup either. And I'll get to that shortly. Here's the bucket that usually is always somewhere between 0 to 1 or 0 to 2. We actually had 3 golfers finish inside the top 10, and each one of them were in the optimal lineup. So I would have done pretty poorly fading any of these guys. What I can say is Mark Leishman has been playing pretty terrible since the beginning of the season. Probably outside his norm. Kevin Na is not known as someone who is a negative putter. So the fact that Kevin Na is in this group is also kind of weird. Leishman, I think, can stay in this bucket, but I think Kevin Na really should belong over here. And Brennan Steele probably should be a positive off the tee, negative putting guy. I'm sure those will change, or those will switch. This is something where if I had my own database, which I am working on, but if I had my own database and saw, a bigger sample size as opposed to just pulling data from a website not to be named, I think these guys might be in different buckets. But because I pulled the same stats from 2020 to 2021, like I'm using the same site to grab stats from, it all still kind of plays into that account. And maybe I should look at this more from a tournament to tournament aspect, because I will say this, I didn't do it for this one. This is just what I've accumulated from every tournament that I started recording this. More often than not, 2 to 4 from the positive off the tee, positive putting. And I already went through this, but all of those that I have up here, all the little picks, is mostly an average, or what I've seen most of the time during previous tournaments. Now, obviously, we need to pick 6 golfers in a lineup. Top 10 can have more than 10 golfers in it, which means these might get inflated a bit, but they still work. Like I'm not going to take away from that. It still works in my opinion. So either way, if we were doing a realistic lineup, the ones that have like little tick marks to go with blue are not in the realistic lineup. So Matt Jones, you can erase. Mark Leishman, you can erase. Those guys would not have been in a realistic winning GPP lineup. We already went through this one. Brendan Steele, Kevin Na, Peter Malnati, Chris Kirk, Webb Simpson, and Joaquin Niemann would have been in your realistic GPP winning lineup, like the best scoring realistic GPP winning lineup, which would have grabbed 2 golfers from this bucket, would have grabbed 1 golfer from this bucket, would have grabbed 1 golfer from this I'm sorry, I should actually say this out loud for any of my audio only listeners. 2 golfers out of the positive off the tee, positive putting category, and I said pick 2 to 4. 1 golfer, Chris Kirk, out of the positive off the tee, negative putting category, and I said pick 1 to 3. 1 golfer, Peter Malnati, out of the negative off the tee, positive putting, when I said pick 0 to 2. And then you'd have picked 2 golfers out of the negative off the tee, negative putting category, where I only say 0 to 1. So this one probably needs to change to 0 to 2. And those golfers were Kevin Na and Brendan Steele. So using this, still, like, to me, I love making lineups this way, or I love creating lineups this way, because I can limit my exposure on some golfers. You know, I wouldn't want, I don't even think you can, but I wouldn't want to put all 6 of my golfers in from this bucket in there. Obviously, the odds of that being, you know, finding the right guys and them all finishing inside the top 10, way worse, in my opinion, than using the entire pool. I understand my numbers could be off and it's whatever, but I don't think that that's possible. But either way, using this, I would say this was a success. You guys can disagree with me in the comment section, but I would say this is a success. Because I basically fell under everything. The only thing I got wrong was this one, and I will change this on video right now, 0 to 2. Because I still believe it's 0 to 2, although we see a third one there. We're not getting to that third one, and I believe one of these guys should be in a different bucket anyways. So I do still think 0 to 2 is the way to go. But yeah, that is kind of everything. I could go over course history and course fit. I don't really think it's going to matter. One of the really interesting pieces of information that I saw was demographics, looking at shot shape. How many golfers that favor a draw over a fade finish inside the top 10? This might be something to look at for next year. But I thought it was extremely interesting to see more draw golfers there. And if it's windy, I understand why. Draws penetrate ball flight or penetrate the wind a little bit better than fades, but we didn't really have much wind at this tournament. So I don't know. Official World Golf Ranking was an interesting one. Everybody that finished inside the top 10 was inside the top 300 official World Golf Ranking. You could exclude Patton Kizzire, Chris Kirk, and grab the rest of them. Everybody was inside 114th, but we could also even give away 114 and say everybody was in the top 40, essentially, inside the top 10. Well, the rest of the other guys, the majority of them. So that might be something to look at, you know, just pile on your top 40s. official world golf ranking. Course history, your field average course history was 54.84. Only Joaquin Niemann, Billy Horschel as well, were the only golfers inside the top 10 to not be under field average. Overall Bermuda average, your average field average was 55.44. Everybody inside the top 10 was under it. This was the big one. I said this in the strategy video, or even in the course fit video. We want to target golfers who are 10% and higher. I think I said 7% and higher because that's usually what it is. But if you look at the top 10, Colin Morikawa up, everybody was 10% or better. So this was how frequent, what is their percentage of finishing inside the top 10 at Bermuda events. So here it looks, obviously we want to target Bermuda, decent Bermuda golfers at this event. And then if you look at their 2021 Bermuda splits, only Brendan Steele, who probably only played one tournament, he missed that cut. That's probably why his average is so bad. But everybody else, field average was 54.08. Look how much everyone else in this category just blew it out of the water. So that was interesting. Usually I like to look at, the field average for DraftKings points was 55.93. Everybody except for Mark Leishman and Brendan Steele, they were over that pretty decently, or by a decent margin. For scoring average, your field average was 71.04. You had two guys not really make that, but everyone else. So these were good things to look at, and that I incorporated into the tee time pairings. I only found 3 golfers that all had the same tee time. That was it. Inside the top 10, that is. I didn't look outside that. Let's see. I don't see any other pairings. So really kind of focusing on tee time pairings for the entire tournament. Again, these are only Thursday, Friday tee time pairings. So when they get repaired Saturday, Sunday, it doesn't really make sense. But yeah, I think what I'm going to do is leave it at that. I just wanted to say, when discussing, what we went over in the preview, the course fit, the strategy video, all of it kind of played out the way we thought it would. I didn't really get caught up with a lot of the rest of the industry. I like doing my own thing. I don't, obviously you obviously know a lot of the things that I talk about don't comply with the rest of the industry, but basically the majority of what I discussed worked. So I'm going to continue doing that going into the American Express, which I heard is going to be a little different this year than last year. We're still going to follow that same, look at historical salaries. We'll look at bucket system, all that good stuff. But yeah, DFS preview should be out tomorrow morning. I don't think I'm going to get it out tonight. Should be out tomorrow morning. And then hopefully Course Fit will be also out later tomorrow. And maybe a new video. I actually have something in the works that I'm really excited to share. So be on the lookout for that. And we've kept this video under 30 minutes. So that's a good thing. That's a win. This week was a win minus the bankroll. It wasn't a complete loss, but either way, enjoyed it this week. Can't wait to look forward to next week. Thank you guys for watching. Please leave a like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. And I will see you in the preview for the American Express. All right, bye.